Hey, welcome back to the Malm podcast. It's me here with my dad.
And I'm Rick. How you doing today, Joel? What's going on?
Good. Hey, so following in line with our no, I'm not going to tell you what we're talking about. I'm not going to tell you what we're talking about today.
I
So
hope by the end of the podcast I
by
figure it out.
by the end you'll figure it out.
Sometimes you don't.
You turned 72 on Monday?
71.
71 on Monday.
71.
All
Yeah.
right, 71.
Yes, yesterday.
And I was thinking about how enjoyable you are to be around, even at 71, and how I've met some people at 71 that are not enjoyable to be around. And what made me really think of it this morning is I pulled up to HEB in the parking lot. This is the HEB parking lot that has just crazy stuff go down there. I mean, I've seen fights break out over handicap spots at this HEB. People waving their walkers at each other.
How much are they going to fight if they're handicapped?
They're violent. Some of them are incredibly violent people, right? Over their handicap spot.
Yes.
But this guy, he had hold on, I can't read you verbatim what it said because it's too vulgar. But this is what he had literally had on both sides of his car.
Like a bumper sticker, you mean, or something?
He literally had it painted across the side of his car. It was a really nice SUV, and he had like vinyl stickers made, and it said this: "A nation of whiny babies is our next generation." And it was a quote by Kid Rock. He not only had it on one side of his car, he had it on the other side of his car.
Really?
And I thought, what makes you, and I saw the guy, he was an older guy. I thought, what makes you put that on your car? And this was the other question.
He's a Kid Rock fan, so he stays pretty current with some things, I guess.
Kid Rock's so 90s.
Is he
so
yesterday?
90s.
Yeah,
Yes. So, but I thought, what causes someone to get, I mean, first of all, what does that do for anything? Just yelling. But then I started thinking about how older people, and I realized I'm prone to this. You start looking at the next generation, not necessarily the generation behind me, but maybe two behind me. And I look at them and I go, man, are we doomed? Is there any hope for the next generation? And I see this next generation actually rising up. You see a lot of them. I've been having a lot of them come to the church just in the last 4 weeks since the Charlie Kirk thing, saying, pray for me for boldness. And I want to be able to speak out. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to live in anxiety. And I thought, how interesting that they're wanting to rise up. They know something's not right. But it made me think of that quote that says, strong men make good times make weak men make bad times, and hard times, or whatever, and hard times make strong men. So again, that's referring to men, but I think in general, that's kind of the sequence of things. You look at David, you look at like Solomon, David, and Saul, right? So Saul made bad times for Israel. King David became strong, made good times for Israel. Solomon had it easy and made bad times for Israel. Right after him, the kingdom split.
Yeah.
But I think about just this idea of, I guess, I don't know if my question is, how do you keep from becoming an angry old bitter person? Or is my question, is there hope for the next generation? And I'm really believing there's hope for the next generation because I have a daughter who's in that generation.
Yeah.
And I see her, but there's some things that I get frustrated about. I go, she needs to have a little more discipline and stuff. Stuff my grandpa was super hard on me about stuff like that. And I'm like, but yet she's got other strengths that I'm like, wow. I mean, like this kid is learning video editing. She started doing video editing the other day on Canva, which I was like, I didn't even know you could do video editing on Canva. And she pumps out these videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid's got some mad technical skills. And she just sorts it out and she'll get mad. She'll be like, I'm sick of this. And she'll walk away and then she'll come back and then do it. I'm like, that's a lot of her and me.
Yeah.
Me and her, better said. So anyways, what's your thoughts on that in terms of how do you keep from becoming bitter about the next generation, and how do you make sure that
I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, all right.
How do you keep from becoming a bitter old man?
Yeah.
Don't be a bitter young man. Because that's really where it starts. I think you find the people that are bitter when they're old, they were bitter when they were young. It's just what does happen though. What I've seen is this, and this is a frightening thought if you're a young person. Whatever you are now becomes more magnified because the older you get, the filters tend to drop away. I don't know if it's the filters drop away. That's a part of it, but you see bitter old people were bitter young people.
Well,
happy old people were happy young people.
That's true. And you see people too that were if you felt a little bit entitled, like the world should treat me better. The older you get, the more you're like, the world should treat me better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've paid my dues.
Yeah.
Younger, it's just because I'm young and this is next generation, that old generation. I think, and the other thing is the frustration with the younger generation. I've fought that. And the reason people get that way, the reason the old people is that way, well, this next generation, they're just this and that. They forget what it was like when they were that generation. See, I grew up, I was in the Jesus people deal, in the 60s, 60s, early 70s when the world was falling apart. I mean, literally, you think it's bad now. It was really messed up.
Yeah, I was listening to, I think it was, I can't remember who it was. It was talking after this, Charlie Kirk assassination. They were saying,
oh, yeah.
Oh, man, political violence was really bad in the 60s. There were a series of high-profile individuals like a Kennedy.
President, Robert Kennedy, running for president, Senator Kennedy, and then Martin Luther King. Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. And we hadn't had anything like that in the past. And so it's like all of a sudden, oh, my gosh. And then you have, violence in the streets. You have students killed on a college campus when the National Guard are sent in. And we don't even know what happened. I don't know. Maybe they do know what happened now. But National Guard, a couple of guys opened fire because they thought they were threatened, and innocent students walking across the parking lot. They weren't even across the campus. Anyhow, we had a lot of stuff. Every night on TV, we were shown firefights that took place in Vietnam. Three American soldiers died today. 5 American soldiers died today. And you're seeing it was commonplace. And so it's like, in fact, I remember watching. We just saw that growing up. That was just kind of what it was like in the 60s and 70s. And, whole neighborhoods burned down. We're seeing it again. We're doing real quick. We're running as fast as we can to get as messed up as we were back then. But I really believe that the move of the Spirit, what they call the Jesus People movement, brought a revival to this nation that, Jesus was the Time Magazine's Man of the Year one year. Come on. He was on the cover. So it was a real move of God that brought this nation out of a downward spiral. And maybe we're seeing that again. I kept praying, I thought I've seen really 2 real revivals in our nation that changed the nation. And I was praying, Lord, are you done with us, or are we going to get one more? And I think we may be getting one more. At least in my lifetime.
But that brings up another challenge, because typically what you find is the way God chooses to move, even the older generation goes, well, that's not a move of God. A move of God looks like this.
Yeah, well, and you see that historically. That's what I shared with some people the other day. I said, is this a move of God? The thing that concerns me about it is the church recognizes it. When it's truly a move of God, it's usually the church that resists it the most, because it's not the way I experienced it.
That literally has been a concern of mine, because of what you taught me growing up, is that like as soon as the church it's almost like as soon as you name it, it's done, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man. And they say this year, they said Bible sales are up. And everybody's like, oh, it's because of people finally preaching the gospel. I'm like, actually, to be honest, I think it's because of Jordan Peterson. I'm just going to be blunt. I think it's Jordan Peterson going across the country teaching from a psychological perspective how powerful the Bible is, and people are going, there's something else in here rather than this fundamentalist, literalist, everything. And people are like,
definitely.
And it's amazing to me that some people still don't know who he is. It's fascinating to me. Like people are still just like, well, who's that? I'm like, are you living under a rock? Like, for real? But then those people are the ones that, well, there's a move of God when. I don't know. It is irritating how Christians, we tend to miss the real move of God because we have an idea in our head of what it needs to look like. Yeah. And that's why the Pharisees
experienced God. That's the way everybody should experience God. And the other thing is, it's like, that's the only kind of thing I can see is what I've experienced. I was brought into the Lord at a time when there was this move of God, and there was a lot of teaching going on in the 60s and the early 70s. In fact, one of the big books at the time, there was a whole magazine devoted to wineskins. There was a whole magazine, not a magazine, but anyway, it was called New Wine. And it was the idea of God does new things, and you've got to remain flexible. So all my life, I've always been kind of, okay, God, is this a move of you, or is this just another fad? Because fads do come and go in the church. And I think this may be a move of God. We'll see what happens, because it doesn't have anything to do with, well, we finally got it together. There was a book years ago, love the guy who wrote it, why revival tarries, and it was all about how we don't pray enough. And I go, man, well then show me. You pray enough, and let's see revival in your life. It's it's a God thing, and when He does it differently. There's some similarities.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be an emphasis upon the word. There's going to be an emphasis upon, anyway, there'll be similarities. But it's like every sunrise is different. Every sunrise is unique. And if I expect it to be like the last one, I'm going to be very disappointed if I keep waiting to see a sunrise that looks like the last one. This is beautiful, but it's not like the last one.
Yeah, which is that one of my favorite verses.
Changed by it, and so it touches me emotionally. The greatest church you've ever attended was the one you got saved in. There'll never be another one like that.
So King Solomon, don't say why were the former days better than today. It's not wise to ask these things.
Yeah.
So it's like because if you're looking back, it's that psychological concept of rosy retrospection.
Yeah.
Your mind filters out the negative things of the time. Like, remember when we was just you and me and we lived together and every night we were just eating out of the can of beans? And you're like, yeah, but we were poor. we were like wondering if we could make rent. We had the stress of it.
Yeah.
But you filter all that out at the rosy retrospection.
Yeah.
And you just remember the good. That's encouraging to me too, because I've been realizing that more and more. Like, if we really are His workmanship created in Christ Jesus for good works, which the Father prepared beforehand that we should walk in them, Ephesians 2:8-10, for it's by grace you've been saved, then my daughter is a child born for this generation.
Yeah.
She was born for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to be afraid of where, what's that?
Isn't that cool?
I know. It's scary. I get scared sometimes because I'm like, what kind of world is my daughter going to be born into? I'm like, she's going to be born into the exact moment that God intended for her to be born into. And she was born for this. She's ready for this. Whatever God's putting in her is what this generation is going to need. And I look at it and I'm scared because I'm like, there's some weird stuff going on, stuff I never had to think about, stuff she's exposed to earlier on in her life.
That's what we were saying should we have kids? Should we have kids? Oh, there's stuff going on now that's never been in our growing up. And you can't give in to that. That's a lie from the enemy. We're never enough anyway.
Yeah.
He's always enough through us.
Well, and I think that's where you can keep a hopeful, speaking of Jordan Peterson, I heard somebody say that. They're like, well, all he's doing is encouraging these men who are sitting in their bedrooms playing video games. And
what's wrong with
and he's
that?
like, is that not the best possible thing you could do? And it makes sense too. It also makes sense. I do believe there's a lot of spiritual stuff going on. Michaela Peterson, his daughter, Jordan Peterson, has been in the ICU for a month now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's like in dire straits. And she was saying,
sick. Yeah, wow.
She was saying, she really believes part of it is spiritual. She thinks, she's become a Christian.
I've heard her.
She believes that there's a literally a spiritual war going on right now, like an attack on the saint, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And some of it's revealed in the physical with, the violence that we see. But it's interesting because we kind of, sometimes we ignore that side of it, but there is definitely a spiritual nature to it.
Sometimes too, a proud person has to come to the end of themselves, and sometimes that has to be physically when I can do nothing else.
Yeah, man, I thought about that the other day. I was talking to a bunch of guys that were in recovery, and I thought, well, these guys got a faster track to God than a lot of people I know, because they've realized I have something that controls me that I don't have any willpower or ability to conquer. And when you get to that place, that's when God's like, now I can do something in you. But how many of us have just enough goodness and willpower to, that was me. I just, I can do this. Sheer force of my will, I can conquer these sins and habits. And you go, it's only when you come to the point where you're just like, something has me beat.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost a fast track to God.
And it's not just alcoholics. I was telling somebody the other day, I said, when we're just fussing and fighting and trying to get it done and putting all, I think God just kind of stands back and says, okay, when you're worn out and done with that, let me know. I'll come in.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'll just stand back and watch you do your little thing.
Which ties in maybe to this idea that this next generation, a lot of us older folks, we've got it in our mind. I'm talking like an old guy. I'm 47, but I think like an old man sometimes. Emily says that you've been old since you were 12. I'm like, but I realize sometimes I think, well, they've got to have this to thrive in the next thing. And you got to trust that, this is the way it should be. It should be this way. And we get so grouchy and irritated that it's not that way. But if we can just sit back and trust, okay, God, and this is where your Calvinist side should come in his sovereignty, God preordained her to be here in this moment. And she's got everything she needs to do what she's called to do in her generation. And I got to chill out and go, man, I wish you had more of this. And obviously, I think there are some things we need to instill in our kids, right? But it's the classic disciplines, right? But we can't get hung up on the form. We have to get hung up on the essence, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we get hung up on form of things.
Well, a simple thing. I was telling Jonathan the other day, we were just talking about the boys, and I said, just be sure you point them to Jesus. And don't raise Christian kids, raise passionate disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ.
That's good.
Because if you're just raising Christian kids, they go to church, they do the thing, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to stand against, they won't stand. They may not go to hell and, fall into wicked, vile sin, but you want passionate disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ, no matter what they face.
Which is where that essence over form comes in. It's like we get so hung up, the generation looking at the generation behind us.
Yeah.
We get so hung up on what the form was, and we've got to let go of the form and get to the essence of it. Like, do you have a heart for God? Because if you've got that, you can roll with whatever
everything
happened.
Else will go, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, plus we forget how dumb we were at that age. I mean, some of the stupid things before your brain was fully formed.
Yeah.
It made sense to you then, but now you see other kids doing it, you go, what in the world are they thinking? You go, same thing you thought at that age, you knucklehead.
Yeah, that's right.
You were just as goofy as them.
Yeah.
We just forget.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, I'm not sure exactly what to title this podcast. I'll see what AI says to call it, because we went two different directions, but I liked where we went. So, hey, I hope you've enjoyed this. Hey, we reached 1,000.
I heard that.
Finally, 1,000 subscribers. We're actually 1,028. Yeah. So thank you for those of you who have subscribed to the podcast. Please, if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and hit subscribe and like there so that you can get notified of updates. And appreciate you listening, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, please consider sharing it and leave a review where you listen to it. For more from Joel Malm, visit joelmalm.com. For more from Rick Malm, visit rickmalm.com. This podcast was produced by Alex Burleson.